Thursday, the 26th of the 9th, 2019, and there's a couple of things I want to speak about today. Well, two or three things I want to speak about today. Now, basically up the road there's no play. There's been no play. Everybody's aware that there's no play. It's suspended activity because they can't adhere to their own safety rules. 2.9 on the Richter scale, 2.1 on the Richter scale, 1.6 on the Richter scale. Not to mention 10 breaches. Not to mention a disregard for the community that far outweighs any sort of act of antisocial behaviour that's occurred at what they deem to be antisocial behaviour. This morning, I don't know if you know Liz. Liz is one of the most inspirational women that I've ever had the chance to meet and work alongside and protest alongside. Liz has been dragged from her vehicle this morning whilst trying to remove it. Liz is she stood in the way of a tanker for a mere amount of seconds with a placard, because that's what you do when you're protesting. There's still tankers going in and out there for whatever reason, whoever knows. But she's been pulled from her car this morning, early hours, and dragged and arrested. This sort of zero tolerance attitude towards protest. So she's still locked up at the moment. We're now sort of like into sort of two-ish in regards of time. She's still locked up. She's got people down there on arrestee support. So big up to Liz, big up to everybody up the gate, and this zero tolerance attitude towards protest, what we're seeing at the moment, it's a little bit more than just nicking people, because they've done this for the last 4 to 5 months, bailing people away, specifically bailing people away, targeting people to bail them away, like there could be some future activity in the pipeline, so to speak. No pun intended, because there's no pipelines around here. Yeah, I'm a little bit annoyed this morning, and I'm just letting you know. So, on a bit of a lighter note, I want to just take this opportunity to thank everybody for donating money towards our crowdfunder. We had a crowdfunder to raise £5,000 for a van. We didn't hit that target, but we never expected to hit that target, to be honest. The target that we did it was just over £1,000. Thank you to everybody who donated. Big love to everybody who donated. We're going to use that money for some equipment. We're going to use that money to get a new laptop, some more cameras, and buy the domain and pay for the domain for 2 years for the website. But we will we will acknowledge everything that we get with it, and we will relay that to you guys, the guys who support us. So this week coming up, we've got the Tory Party conference. Now, 200 years in of the Peterloo massacre, that's what it was, a massacre. 200 years in, these bad sense of humour, elite, hypocrite, whatever they call them, whatever you want to call them, they decide to have this Tory part scam all conference in Manchester. So these are the guys that are responsible for the Back to Work programmes that's seen thousands upon thousands of people die. These are the guys responsible for breaking up, displacing families. You know, to see the amount of food banks in place, there's something like 1.5 million food parcels being handed out in 2019 as opposed to 40,000 in 2015. So in the last 4 years, they've quadrupled, whatever. It's out of the water. The poor, specific stats on poor families. 1.6 million people were malnourished in the UK. 1 in 6 parents go without food to feed their kids. You know, thousands upon thousands of people dying. There was a guy, an autistic guy last week, killed himself. His body was found 9 days after his suicide in his flat, which tells you a lot about, you know, the circulation of friends, the circulation of care, the circulation of any thought towards others in a society that's been bred to smash community, that's been bred in a class structure. Basically, the media created the underclass. Now Brexit was spun afterwards, and they also divided the class even further, the working class, the underclass, or whatever they want to call it. They divided people even further on. So it was spun for Brexit, the Tories, big failure for David Cameron, and all these wankers are coming back to Manchester this coming weekend, the 29th, for 3 days, I believe, some party conference. So this is a place where they'll all turn up, suited and booted. Their followers will all turn up. I'll try and catch them on the camera and get some straight answers. It's an impossibility. They can't even answer the bare, basic questions about their party. I've been sworn at. I've been scoffed at by these posh bastards in suits because I ask them the questions that basically puts them out to seed. Like, you know, what's your biggest achievement in the party? How's it feel to be a part of a racist party who created the most hostile environment for people from other war-torn countries, refugee countries, that we created in the first place with our foreign policy, with our bent foreign policy, supporting the Saudis, supporting Yemen, you know, the bombing in Yemen, them sort of policies that are in place, the bent foreign policies that see workers in BAE, Lockheed Martin, training up Saudi pilots to kill, you know, people with stones, to kill babies and women and babies in their homes of a night time. Nothing said about it, you know, nothing retracted. You know, it doesn't make the news. The BBC print what they want to print. The BBC, the mainstream media in particular, every mainstream media out there is an absolute shithouse. I don't disclude any of them. The Guardian can't find their back pocket with both hands. The BBC print what they're told to print. The governmental control and interest into the BBC licence, etc., means that they still have a say in that. They will never let that go. I don't believe they'll ever let the licensing go from that, because that will particularly mean that they may have to be impartial to reporting, which we don't really see. Even ITV, who is supposed to be impartial, you don't see it at all. You still see what they're told to print, what they're told to film, what they're told to report. You still see it. You still see them leaving out key details of people that are dying hand over fist under the government, whether that be bent foreign policy, whether that be home policies, you know, regards to taking money off people, taking the aids off people that were set up to aid people in the first place. We see death after death, we see misery, and we see it all reported by the papers, but we also see these racist narratives reported by the papers, and narratives created to keep you busy, that week, speaking about something like Danny Baker's posted something about one of the royal family's babies. So we'll catch up with the Tories this weekend, see how close we can get to them. 2017 was the first time that Maple Indie Media covered the Tory party conference. We found ourselves being able to get close to them, being able to see where the entrance of where they went in. That year it was at the Midland Hotel, and there was quite a few politicians there, quite a few wankers in suits. We caught up with the People's Assembly, who in actual fact have probably organised a big part of this march this coming Sunday. I've seen their name labelled all over the place. Now, I don't happen to appreciate People's Assembly that have in the past tried to cast people like myself and other grassroots activists out of the protest, away from the protest, get them out of the front. We don't want them at the front. I've seen WASPI, the Women's Association Against State Pension Cuts. I don't think that's the actual, but the women who fight against pension cuts. I've seen them at the austerity march in London. I've got footage of them being thrown out of the march from the front, being told that they're not welcome to be at the front. They're for photo opportunities. They wanted other people at the front, other people being the folks that they think that should be a face of acceptable protest. In sort of terms of XR lines, long before XR come along, they've been dwelling along in the past somewhere as Rise Up or you know. So we've seen people castigate outside of protest. We've seen people moved away from the protest because their face doesn't fit. We've seen people kettled out of the protest. In 2017, there was 15 people kettled into a double kettle or a triple kettle, I think it was. A triple kettle that kept these people in. There was, in that kettle itself, I filmed quite a few dodgy faces, which seemed to me to be undercover activity that was sort of agitating this group of people. I've seen close to 250 cops deployed for 15 people to keep them away from any sort of, to keep them within any sort of distance away from the Tory party, to keep them from singing songs which like Tories out, Tories out, Tories scum, to keep them from saying stuff like that, to keep them away from the people who are actually going into the conference. Now this to me is just a complete clear removal of any form of expression or protest, regardless. You know, we're supposedly living in a world of free speech, and if you can't stand there and say Tories out, Tories out, if you have to be kettled away to say that, well away from the actual Tories themselves. So it's okay for the Tory party to bleed people dry, to starve thousands and upon thousands of families to death. It's okay for their supporters, their benefactors, their donators to be walking in thousands of pounds worth of suits, thousands of pounds worth of shoes, bags that probably cost more than our whole outfit, to be honest. It's okay for them to do that. It's okay for them to walk in. But the moment you say, specifically stand up and say, oi, you're not right, you know what I mean, this isn't right, then they hire a corporate entity, which is the police force, to come and do their bidding for them, to come and get you out of the way. As we've seen up the road with the protest, as I spoke about today with Liz, you will see that on Sunday in the Tory party conference. You'll see thousands of police deployed. You'll see Lancashire Police Department deployed. You'll see other police department, what they call mutual aid, will go in to deploy and remove people's protest. You will see snipers located on rooftops. You will see people, I don't know whether you will see the XR flag. It's undeniable that you see that wherever you go, regardless. The XR flag's been planted there wherever you go, to see that logo. That logo's well ingrained into people's heads. Stickers, flags. These flags and stickers have been sort of passed on by other members who have never actually been to these protests, and you're seeing the photo opportunities with their flags waving in the background, with their stickers over sticking something that you've put up there. So these guys are connected. XR are very connected. People's Assembly are very connected, because like people who have been campaigning for years upon years, like the Hillsborough campaign, who have been quoted as saying the most popular groups become the most compliant ones, i.e. the unions, i.e. People's Assembly, XR, and they will take the highlights and they will take everything off the grassroots movements, who will soon get forgotten about or deemed to bring the violence or the violent system upon themselves through the way of the protest. We've already seen Roger Hallam going to work on that with the books, telling people how to behave on the front line, telling people what should be done on the front line, telling people what works. Specifically after, nearly just a year, I think it is, XR have been on the scene. Yeah, run by a group of shithouses, same as People's Assembly, run by a group of shithouses, bringing a whole massive group of people together under a banner of specifically organised protest alongside the police, who then are organised to take anybody's specific protest off them if they don't adhere to the rules which have been set in place by People's Assembly, which have been set in place by XR, People's Assembly and groups like that will denounce people who get arrested if they don't deem them to be peaceful enough, if you run too fast, or if you have an angry look on your face, or if you swear, then you're deemed as to be not peaceful, etc. So you just left, then you just cast aside like a piece of shite. There's no solidarity involved within these groups. So if you go in on Sunday, and if you're going to be part of the protest on Sunday for the People's Protest, not the People's Assembly protest, go and stand at the front of that. Go and stand at the front of that demo, go and bang your drum, be as loud as you like, because these people are in control of us. These people are in control of our lifestyle. These people are in control of our protest, and these people are working together with the authorities to control your protest, to control every aspect, and to make you think that you should be apologising and thanking the authorities for poisoning your people to death, for bombing your people to death, and castigating and locking your people away. Don't do it, folks. Protest the Tories. Make the hostile environment which they made for everybody else to show they're not welcome.